Καλησπέρα σας, καλοί φίλοι τηλεθεατές. Δευτέρα σήμερα, 16 Ιουλίου, και βρισκόμαστε ακριβώς έξω από το Θέατρο Τέχνης, όπου σε λίγο θα αρχίσει η εβδομάδα Κύπρου, την οποία διοργανώνει κάθε χρόνο το Θέατρο Τέχνης. Έχουμε την ευκαιρία σε λίγο να παρακολουθήσουμε την έπαρση της σημαίας, όπως γίνεται κάθε χρόνο. Με αυτή λοιπόν την εκδήλωση αρχίζει και η εβδομάδα για την Κύπρο, όπως έχω πει. Στα πλαίσια λοιπόν αυτής της εβδομάδας θα υπάρχουν αρκετές εκδηλώσεις, όπως παραδείγματος χάρη αύριο βράδυ στις 7:30 θα γίνει εκδήλωση με ποίηση και τραγούδια, με τη συμμετοχή αρκετών καλλιτεχνών. Την Τετάρτη είναι μια βραδιά την οποία ανέλαβε το Lobby for Cyprus, το οποίο θα έχει μια ειδική εκδήλωση, η οποία είναι αφιερωμένη στο χωριό Εφτακόμη. Για την εκδήλωση αυτή φυσικά θα μας μιλήσει απόψε ο Γιώργος Ευγενίου, ο οποίος είναι ο Διευθυντής του Θεάτρου Τέχνης. Αναμένουμε λοιπόν κάποιους επίσημους να έρθουν εδώ για την έναρξη της εκδήλωσης και στη συνέχεια θα περάσουμε μέσα στο χολ, όπου θα υπάρχει καλλιτεχνικό πρόγραμμα, στο οποίο λαμβάνει μέρος η χοροδία της ΕΚΑ με τον μαέστρο Μιχαλάκη Μιχαηλούδη, και θα τα δούμε και αυτά σε λίγο.
Compatriots, friends, we are here to raise the flag of the Republic of Cyprus and the European flag that Cyprus is a member, as an act of resistance, defiance of the Turkish invasion and occupation of Cyprus for the last 44 years. It's a crime that still waits to be brought to the International Criminal Court of Justice. The Turkish leader Erdogan calls it peace operation. How can raping, killing, ethnic cleansing, bringing settlers be called peace operation? It's a crime. And there is the permanent tribunal, People's Tribunal in Paris, that the Kurdish people have taken Turkey recently to that tribunal, found guilty. Now we're waiting for the Cypriot government to do the same. I won't say anymore because we're going to expand more in the theater. We're going to raise the flags and then we all move into the theater. Thank you very much. Raise the flag of the Republic of Cyprus and the European flag. Everybody applause. Cyprus Republic must live, exist and must live. It must not be died, must not be forced to extinguish. It's up to us to do it.
Yes.
Bravo. Up to the Cypriot people. And this is a symbol of the Republic of Cyprus, of resistance and defiance. Let's all move into the theater now. Let's go through that door. I welcome you to Theatro Technis. This is many years that we have started the Cyprus Week in the 50s, really, when there was the Eoka uprising in Cyprus against British colonization. And every time a British soldier was killed in Nicosia, there were reprisals in London, in Camden, because the majority of the Cypriots lived in Camden in the 50s, and there were slogans over the church walls, houses, ships go home, bloody terrorists. So I thought, how can we counteract this this thing, and the idea of starting a kind of festival of events, cultural, social, and political events, and to acquaint the host community who the Cypriots are, why they came to Britain, and what is their history. There is a 5,000 years history. And so that was very successful, and we continued that till 1974, when the Greek junta coup, the terrible coup, and the Turkish invasion took place. Ever since then, the emphasis went to tell the world what happened in Cyprus, who were behind the invasion and the occupation and the Greek junta coup. The Greek junta coup started, instigated by the Americans, the CIA, because there was the American plan, then the Dean Acheson plan. Dean Acheson was a Secretary of State under the Ford administration, which he decided that the Republic of Cyprus, which they created under the London-Zurich Agreement in 1959, it was not in their favor, because the Makarios was getting friendly with Soviet Union and the Soviets and the socialist states in Europe, and that he would bring the Russians in the Mediterranean and Cyprus. So they decided to abolish the Republic of Cyprus and unite Cyprus with Greece and give Turkey a base in Cyprus. Makarios refused. They didn't want Turkey to have a base in Cyprus. We had already 2 sovereign bases by the British, and having a Turkish base in Cyprus, it was quite unreasonable. So he became the #1 enemy of the United States in Mediterranean. They call him Castro of Mediterranean, and the Red Monk. And there were several attempts of assassination. And one of them was the Greek junta, who on the 15th of July, they driven their tanks to kill Makarios. It wasn't against the Turkish Cypriots or the Turkey, it was against Makarios and the followers of Makarios, the Eoga, Vita, and that, of course, opened the gates to the Turkish invasion. The Americans, so they let down the junta. Ioannidis said that we've been betrayed by the Americans. But the Americans had their plans, and Kissinger gave the green line to Turkey to invade and occupied 1/3 of the island. The partition of the island was instigated by the British in 1956. When it was like the Ireland, the IRA fighting the British in Ireland, they divided the people, the North and South Ireland. They did the same for the Greek Cypriots. They used the Turkish Cypriots as auxiliary police against the Turkish Cypriots against the Greek Cypriots. Every time a British soldier entered a Greek Cypriot home, was accompanied by Turkish Cypriot auxiliary police, arrested a young suspect, a Eoga suspect, took him to Nicosia and tortured him. One of them was my brother-in-law, who was young, 15 years old, in Kyrenia. So they instigated the concept of partition. Then the Turkish leadership, Rauf Denktaş, who was a barrister trained in London, and he was in the British intelligence service, he created, under the auspices of the British, the famous terrorist organization TFT, and they advocated and fought for partition. And then Turkey was brought in and became one of the guarantors under the London-Zurich Agreement. And once they put a foot in Cyprus, the rest, it was a natural process to follow the invasion and occupation. And what the fear is, once the partition is legalized, then the next move is the Turkification of the whole of Cyprus. Because Turkey, and if you listen to Erdogan, the present leader of Turkey, he wants to revive the Ottoman Empire. He wants to revive the Lausanne Treaty, under which the British have forced Turkey to abandon any rights on Cyprus. I don't know if you're familiar with the Lausanne Treaty in 1922. So Erdogan wants to revive that for Cyprus and the islands of Aegean Sea. So that is the danger, the Turkification and the Islamization of the north of Cyprus has already happened. And they want to do that also in the south of Cyprus in the next 50 years. And if we don't stop it now, it will happen. It will be a crime that we Cypriots, you know, we are so apathetic about this. And our governments, all the governments in Cyprus, instead of taking the legal action, this is a crime committed. They follow the negotiations. Where did the negotiations lead us? Into the Grand Montana, which reached a deadlock. And even that, we still want to revive the negotiations from where we left it. Where? To persuade Turkey not to be the guarantor power and to get the troops out of South Cyprus. We know that it will never happen. So the Americans and NATO and all are putting pressure on us and our governments to accept what Turkey wants. Once we accept that, that's the end of Cyprus. Therefore, we've got to really stick to the Republic of Cyprus. And we tell the Turkish Cypriots it is in their interest to be part of the Republic of Cyprus, citizens of the Republic of Cyprus, equal citizens with everybody, with the Armenians, with the Greeks, with the Russians, whatever they are citizens of the Republic of Cyprus than being just a district of Turkey. Thank you very much. And I will invite Theo to say a few words for Lobby.
I'm just going to say a few words. And we have in Lobby for Cyprus what we call the 3 R's. Very simple and very precise. The first R is the return of the Turkish troops. The second R is the repatriation of the colonists. And the final R, which is one of the most important ones, is the return of all refugees to their homes and their villages. Now, if we look at those 3 R's, that encompasses what I call a solution, and a simple solution. And that applies for Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots and all the other minorities. Now, I also wanted to focus on a point where we're always talking about 2 communities. Yeah, the community which is the Greek community, and then the Turkish community. But the important thing is that our community, it comprises of more than just Greek Cypriots. And statistically, we know that over 20%, and I think it's 21%, of the citizens of the Republic of Cyprus are neither Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot. But when it comes to the negotiations, that 21% falls within the Greek Cypriot community, the 2 communities from the Greek side. Why should it be like that? When we have Russians, we have English, we have Filipinos, we've got Armenians, Latins, and so forth, as part of that community. Everybody should be represented when it comes to discussions for a solution. So now moving on, and another point, in our 3 R's we have a word which is called colonists. A lot of people call them settlers, George, don't they? Settlers are completely different by definition to colonists. Yeah. Colonists come to colonize an island through invasion and occupation. Settlers go to settle. They move, they become immigrants, migration and so forth. We call them colonists. And the most important factor that we, as Lobby for Cyprus, are very careful with is the terminology that we use when we're writing our articles or we're presenting ourselves, as I am today, to make sure we use the right words, which are very important. Very recently, in the last few days, a glossary has come out challenging that, oh, let's not talk about invasion. It was an intervention. My God. My God. So we're calling it intervention, George, now.
Peace operation, yes.
Peace operation as well, yes?
Yeah.
As part of the 1960s constitution and the rights of the Turks to come, yes. Well, that's not true. It's an invasion. It's an invasion and occupation of our island. And as a matter of fact, we have 2 invasions, one after the other. Yep, and we call a third invasion. And you know what the third invasion is? Our hydrocarbons. Yes, the gas reserves that we have. And we mustn't forget about this, because Turkey has an objective. And Turkey will continue to push for their objective, which is one, to divide our island or take the whole of our island. That is exactly what they want. And within the current negotiations, we're talking about a bizonal, bicommunal federal solution, the so-called BBF. Yeah. Now, let's be very careful, because there's no such solution imposed in any other country in the world under that formula and that definition of a bizonal, bicommunal federal solution. No country in the world. There are federal countries like America, yes, and other examples like Switzerland, the canton systems and so forth. Why can't we have a federal system like the Americans? Why not? Why do we have to change it and bring something completely new, which has never been in any other country in the world? We're trying to reinvent something which is there. No, we must not accept that. And we must not accept that, because that will segregate our island by ethnicity and by religion. And that's exactly what the Turks want, because once they do that, then they'll move for recognition of their state, because we will recognize that now we have two states, yes, within a bizonal, bifederal solution, yes? And then what they'll do is they will just have their own rights in order to dictate who can actually reside in their state. And if you look at the actual detail of it, you'll be surprised that refugees will not be able to go back to their villages and be able to live in their own homes. They will become visitors and tourists in their own villages. Now, these are all facts. I'm not making this up. I can give you legal documents to prove all of this. Unfortunately, what is happening here is that there is what we call geopolitics of that region. And that geopolitics of that region is in a mess, total mess. Whether it's from Syria, the Saudi Arabia, and all that. It's a big mess. And we are just a small little island in the middle there, a member of the European Union, with all our rights, whether it's UN, European, and international law. We have the rule of law. We have the right to our properties through the European Court of Justice and so forth. Everything is on our side. I will conclude by saying that we will continue our fight, and we will continue to make sure that our government, whether it's Anastasiadis or the previous governments who were in power, must listen to its people, its citizens, and what the citizens want, and not to follow what the international community wants for a united Cyprus. Thank you. But I will just say about Uprooted.
Yes.
On Wednesday, if I can hand these to you, and you can pass them to everyone, please. Uprooted. It's the disappearing community of Eptagomi. And there's going to be a presentation by several speakers from Eptagomi with reference to their plight during the invasion and the occupation of Cyprus, and their personal stories, which if you come and listen to, wow, it's just, I don't like going back to 1974 during the war, when a lot of us were there. We've been through a lot, but we have to remember. We have to remember everybody who has sacrificed, whether there's brother, there's sister, the mother, the fathers, during that period. So come and listen to personal stories, and also the history of Eptagomi in the launch. There'll be the launch of their book very soon, and they'll be discussing about the contents of that book. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will, before we start the music, will invite the chair of ERGA, the Embassy Bureau to say a few words. Xenia?
Sorry, I wasn't prepared to
Spontaneous.
word talk, so I'll just say a few words. ETA is a cultural organization, but of course we care very much about the situation in Cyprus. I think there are some misconceptions in the period, so there are just to add a few more things. Firstly, to say that it is a misconception that Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots hate each other. We lived together for many years during the British colonial period without any problem. The two communities lived together in the same villages, in the same towns, next to each other. The problems were created by external powers wanting whatever suited them to happen in Cyprus, and two extremist nationalist groups from either side, Kavita from the Greek side and TNT from the Turkish side, as well as been said. The majority of the population have always wanted to live together in peace without any problems. We have different religions, different ethnicity, but this doesn't mean anything. The world, everywhere in the world now, there's no country in the world where there is an issue of different ethnic groups and religions. We're in the 21st century. I think we need to accept, and we want people to know, I mean, we do accept the Cypriots, but I think the world is to know, we see ourselves as Cypriots. We have our own country, and our own country consists of Greek Cypriots, Turkish Cypriots, Latins, Armenians, Maronites, and more recently other people who have legitimately settled there. It is important that the world knows that. It is not a problem between the two communities. It is external powers that create these problems. And unfortunately, in every country, if external powers want to bring a change, there is always a small minority group that can be found to act on their behalf. And unfortunately, this is what happened to us. But the second important thing I want to say, it is essential we find a solution. We do reunite our island very soon. Otherwise, we are growing apart more and more. In every one Turkish Cypriot in the north, there are two people brought from Turkey, settled there. The Turkish Cypriots have become a minority in our own country. We are going to find it very difficult to reunite the island if we continue with the situation as it is. It's absolutely essential that our politicians get their act together. And if I could say, I think politicians all over the world, but more specifically in Cyprus, with the dire situation we're in now, need to think of their country first, and then of their own party and their own personal ambitions. Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't work like that. But we need to remind them that this is why they're voted in, to be there, to resolve the Cyprus situation, to reunite our island, and for us to live in peace, and for external powers to develop and to leave us alone. We don't need guarantees, we don't need protection from anybody. We're a European country, we need to be equal European citizens and not second-rate citizens. As our High Commissioner always says, we are not the children of a lesser God. We have equal rights as every other European country.